Resourceful Designer, episode 19. Are you scaring away potential design clients?
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host, he knows how to choose amazing voiceover talent, Mark Decote.
Welcome to Resourceful Designer. Whether this is your first time listening or if you normally join me week for week, either way, I'm very glad to have you. And yes, Wayne, I do know how to choose great voiceover talent. Yep, all the intros to my podcasts are done by Mr. Wayne Henderson of MediaVoiceovers.com. I thought it'd be fun to have different intros for every episode to kind of give you a little bit of insight into me and who I am. And I just received a brand new batch of them from Wayne that I'll be able to use over the next few months. So if you need the service of a great voiceover artist for your next client project, be sure to check Wayne out and tell him that Mark sent you. Now, I asked that if you have been enjoying this podcast, I would love it if you'd be so kind as to head on over to iTunes and leave a review for the show. Just go to resourcefuldesigner.com/iTunes, which will redirect you right to the page. And by leaving a review, it helps other graphic designers find this podcast more easily. So thank you for everyone who has done so far. Now, as always, I like to start every episode off with a resource of the week. And this week's resource is my very own 4-week marketing boost. Now, I know a lot of you have already downloaded my free guide, and I've got some very good feedback on it. Now, I designed this in the hopes of encouraging graphic and web designers to look at their own brand and image. In it, I created 20 daily tasks that only require about 20 to 30 minutes of your time each day, and they focus on the parts of our marketing material that we often overlook or neglect. So my hopes are that after you follow the 4-week marketing boost, you'll be in a much better position to present yourself to new clients and win them over. Because you only get one chance to present a first impression, so why not make it the best first impression you can? Now, to get the free guide, simply visit marketingboost.net. Or if you're in the USA, text Marketing Boost without a space to 44222. And that'll allow you to sign up and have the guide emailed to you. So once again, that's marketingboost.net, or in the US, text Marketing Boost without a space to 44222. Now, before I continue, I want to remind you that any links or resources I discuss in this episode can be found on the show notes page by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 19. You can also leave any comments about this episode on that same page. And now, are you scaring away potential design clients? I came up with the idea for this podcast after reading a blog post entitled "Finding Clients May Not Be Your Biggest Problem" by Felipe Mandujano. Now, Felipe is somebody I got to know through some of the graphic design Facebook groups I belong to. And when he announced a few months ago that he had brought back his blog, I decided to check it out. And I thought this article was interesting enough that I decided to put it down for a future podcast episode. Now, this episode isn't going to be a rehash of his blog post, but my take on the topic he covers. So if you are interested in reading his post, just click on the link in the show notes of your podcast player or visit resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 19 and the link will be there. Now, obviously, if you're running your own graphic design business, one of the most important things is to get clients. I mean, after all, without design clients, you don't have a business. Now, it can be frustrating for some people who are trying to attract clients, but are having a hard time of it. And yet, other graphic designers in their area seem to not have any problem bringing in new jobs. And you could look at yourself and say, what's wrong? I'm just as good, if not a better designer than they are. But you see, when it comes to running your own graphic design business, it's not just about your creativity and your design skills. The way you communicate drastically affects the success of your business. Now, I want to ask you a question. Do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert? If you said introvert, you're not alone. Did you know that the majority of graphic designers are introverts? Now remember, introvert doesn't necessarily mean that you're shy. It just means that you're more comfortable being alone. And that's what I want to talk about today. Now, if you replied that you're an extrovert, don't worry. I encourage you to stick around for the rest of the episode because I'm sure you'll gain some insight that'll help you as well. Now, one of the big issues with being an introvert is that you don't like to venture too far out of your comfort zone. It's so easy for you to immerse yourself at your computer or your sketch pad or your easel or whatever your medium of choice is for designing and just lose yourself in the creativity. But when it comes to dealing with clients, that's when you step out of your comfort zone. That's one reason you see a lot of design teams out there where one team member does the designing and the other team member is the one that goes out and deals with clients and brings in new jobs. This way, each of them have their own skills and forte, and together they make a perfect team. But not every designer has the benefit of working with a business partner who can handle the clients for them. In fact, most home-based graphic designers are like me, just running a business all alone. And that could be where the problem lies if you are an introvert. If you have trouble expressing yourself and communicating with clients, it comes across as a lack of confidence. If a client asks you a question during a brief and you kind of hesitate or hem and haw or don't seem confident in the answer you give them, they may think that you don't know what you're doing. And in cases like that, it doesn't really matter how good a designer you are. Clients don't want to deal with someone who appears to lack self-confidence when they talk to them. Now, unfortunately, with a lot of designers, this kind of creates a perpetual loop. I mean, you have trouble finding clients because you have trouble communicating with them. And because you're having trouble communicating with them, clients don't want to work with you, which lead you to doubt your abilities as a designer. And when you start doubting your abilities as a designer, it causes you to second guess yourself when you're communicating with potential clients. And then this just goes around and around in a perpetual loop. And that's why so many designers feel the need to lower their prices or to undercut others. They think the market is so competitive that there's no way for them to survive at higher prices, when in fact they can easily land the jobs because of their skills if only they knew how to communicate better with the clients. Now, if this is something that you feel, that you might have some issues or some troubles communicating, getting your message across, or just feeling confident when you're talking to a client, I have some good news for you. This is something you can overcome. Yes, it does require you stepping out of your comfort zone, but it is doable. Let me tell you something. I'm what you call an ambivert, which means I'm kind of in the middle of being an introvert or an extrovert. When it comes to designing, I'm an introvert. I like being alone. I work from home. I love it when I'm the only one here with just my dogs and my cat, and I can just sit down and feel free and design whatever I want. And although it's not so bad now that my kids are older, but I can tell you during the summer months when they were home, I was always so relieved when the school year would approach and I knew they would be leaving the house and I would have it all to myself. And yes, I worked for 15 years designing at a print shop, but I had my own little cubicle. And whenever I would start designing, I would get in this zone and kind of block everything else out and would work as if it was just me. So, as I said, when it comes to designing, I am an introvert. But when it comes to dealing with people, I have to admit I'm an extrovert. I love talking to people. I have no problem striking up a conversation with a total stranger, whether I'm in line at the grocery store, stuck in an elevator, whatever the case. If I hear some people talking, having a conversation, and I have an opinion on it, I'll excuse myself and butt in and give my 2 cents worth. Now, this ability I have to just talk to anybody and not feel overwhelmed or anxious or any anxiety really helps me when I'm dealing with clients. Whenever we're discussing a project and they ask me a question, even if I don't know the answer, I come across confident in letting them know that I don't know the answer, but that we can search for the solution together or I can find it for them. Now, you may say, well, it's easy for you, Mark. You just finished saying you're an extrovert and love talking to people, but I don't feel that way. Well, let me tell you, I haven't always been this way. This is something I had to learn over time, and so can you. Back in high school, I was the biggest introvert. I was shy. I always kept my head down. I didn't really talk much to other people. I had my small group of friends, but that was it. Now, I had a job working in the warehouse at our local Sears store, unloading the trucks in the morning or loading them at night after school. Now, while working at Sears, I met another guy named Mike, who was the same age as I, but went to a different high school. Now, Mike and I started hanging out at work and eventually started hanging outside of work. Now, let me tell you, Mike is probably the biggest extrovert that I know. He was a big guy. I think he stood 6'3", if not 6'4". And at that time, I'm sure he weighed close to 300 pounds. Now, you'd think that was intimidating, But Mike had the nicest personality, and anywhere we went, he would strike up conversations with everybody. We'd be walking down the street and he'd say hi to everybody that passed by, ask them how their day was. If we went into a restaurant and sat down, it was guaranteed that he'd be talking with everybody at every table around us. It was just the type of person he was. Now, for me at the time, that was a big shock. Now, here I was walking next to this big guy who was boisterous and charming, big smile on his face, and I'd stand next to him trying to hide and trying not to be noticed. But the thing is Mike always tried to include me in the conversations. He'd ask people something and then he'd nudge me or ask me a question or ask me to ask them a question or whatever. And eventually, over time, I started building up a little confidence and felt more at ease when I'd talk to people. And then before I knew it, almost by surprise, I started talking to total strangers even when Mike wasn't around. Now, I wouldn't strike up big conversations like he did, but I'd say hi or ask him little questions. If I was standing in line at the grocery store and I saw something in somebody's shopping cart, I'd ask them if it was good, or I'd tell them that I'd never tried that before and would they recommend it. Just little things like that. And over time, I came out of my shell. And now I have no problems talking to anyone. And the skills I've developed through all the insignificant conversations I've had have honed my skill to the point where I come off as confident and sure when I talk to clients. And that confidence puts them at ease and drastically improves my chances of landing them as clients. So if you're a graphic designer working for yourself and you think you might have trouble communicating, expressing yourself, or just talking with people, you really need to set that as your goal this year to improve on that. And to help you along, I want to give you a little bit of homework. You can even make a game out of this if you want. The next time you find yourself at a checkout counter, I want you to say hi to the cashier before they say hi to you. Now, you know that anybody that's a cashier has been trained and has been told to greet each and every customer they see. So you know they're going to say hi to you regardless. There's no way out of that part. So why not take the initiative and start that conversation yourself by saying hi to them before they get a chance to say hi to you? See how it feels. Now, what usually comes after both of you say hi? That's right. They usually ask you about your day or how you've been or if things are going well. But since you're the one that opened the dialogue, you get to do this part. So why not ask the cashier about their day and see what happens? You don't need to get into an in-depth conversation with them if you don't want to. But you will notice that if you take the initiative and start this conversation by saying hi first, it will boost your confidence. And the more you do this, the more you try this, do this little game, you'll get better and better at it. And if you do it on a regular basis, you'll notice that you'll be much more confident when talking with perfect strangers, which will drastically help you when you're talking with potential clients. Now, another thing you can try is if you don't already, join some sort of graphic design group, such as on Facebook or LinkedIn, and start talking with the others in the group. Instead of just lurking and reading what people are saying, start replying to some of the conversations. Put in your 2 cents worth. This should be very easy because you're not actually face-to-face. This is just done on your computer. You can even say that this is an introvert's way of communicating. But this is also helping build your communication skills. And as you keep talking with them, you'll start feeling more comfortable doing so. And when others reply to your comments, it'll help boost your self-esteem. So any sort of groups like this are a great way to build your communication skills. Not to mention, they're also a great resource just for communicating with other designers. I mean, that's how I met Felipe, and we've had many conversations over Facebook since then. Now, another thing you can do if you want to boost your confidence when it comes to talking to others is to try to find yourself some kind of mentor. Whether it's in a Facebook group and you kind of latch on to somebody and try to always have conversations with them or follow what they say and reply to them or ask questions of them. Or better yet, do it in person. If you know a designer in your area that you can talk with, bounce ideas off of, that's the perfect kind of mentorship. Now, this works best if it's not somebody you're in direct competition with. Maybe it's an old school friend, somebody that went to design school with you. Or, as I said, somebody that you met in a Facebook group or LinkedIn group, and you start having one-on-one conversations with them. Well, just that sort of communicating back and forth, talking about design, talking about dealing with clients will help boost your confidence so that when you are talking with clients, you can come off a lot more confident and sound like you're very sure of yourself. Now, another real good confidence booster is just reading books. There are so many great books out there that'll help you run your business. Now, I'm not talking about graphic design books. I'm talking about the many books out there that'll help you become a better communicator, such as How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That is a classic when it comes to this sort of thing. And even if you're not actually talking to anybody, just reading a book like that can give you the tools and the know-how to help you in your next conversation. Now, I mentioned that that's one book amongst many others. Now, keep an eye on my blog because finally, within the next few days, I'll be putting out a brand new post listing a whole bunch of non-graphic design books that every graphic designer should be reading. So keep an eye out for that. So when you do end up talking to a client and you put some of the stuff you learned to the test, you talk to them as if you're sure of yourself. You talk to them not as a timid, insecure person, but somebody that has confidence and believes in what they're doing. Just remember that it's okay to ask questions. Some people sometimes think that asking questions shows a lack of skill, but it's actually the opposite. Remember that being confident doesn't mean that you know all the answers. The fact that you're not afraid to ask questions goes a long way when trying to build trust with clients. So if you're not sure of something, ask the question. Just be confident in the way you ask it, which tells them, I don't know the answer, but I'm very interested in finding out. Because you got to remember, you're trying to land these new clients, but these clients are also trying to land a new designer. And when they're looking for a designer, they're looking for more than just creative design skills. They're looking for someone to create a relationship with, someone they can have confidence in, and someone they can trust to understand them and get the job done. So if you are one of the majority of the designers out there that does fall in the introvert category, and that maybe you do have communication problems and possibly have trouble talking with clients, I encourage you to take it one step at a time. Just like everything else, it's a skill you may have to learn, but it is learnable. And once you do, you'll stop worrying about having to lower prices in order to land your next client. Because if you can approach them with the proper attitude and show them that you are the right designer for the job, the money won't be an issue. So I know this was a shorter episode compared to some of the others, but I hope it was beneficial to you. I would love to hear your thoughts if you'd like to leave a comment on the show notes page at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 19. You can also hit me up on Facebook at facebook.com/resourcefuldesigner or on Twitter at resourcefuld. And I always love getting your comments and questions in my inbox at feedback@resourcefuldesigner.com. Now remember, if you haven't already, check out my 4-week marketing boost to help you create the best first impression you can when attracting new clients. And you can get that by visiting marketingboost.net or in the USA by texting Marketing Boost with no space to 44222. In next week's episode, I'm going to take this one to the next step, and I'm going to talk about creating a relationship with your clients after you've landed the job. Until then, I wish you all the best in your design business. I'm Mark DeCote, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.